The End of the World Part 7a The Mystery of the Babylonian Woman. Revelation chapter 17 verse 3, Then I was under the power of the Spirit, and the angel led me into the wilderness. I saw there a woman riding a red monster. The beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. Everything is written all over its body blasphemy against God. Revelation chapter 17 verse 4 The woman's dress was purple and red. Her jewels are gold, precious stones and pearls. He holds a golden cup full of his accursed deeds and shameful lewdness. Revelation chapter 17 verse 5 A name with a secret meaning was written on her forehead, the famous Babylon, the mother of adulterers and of all lewdness on earth. Revelation chapter 17 verse 6 I saw this woman drunk with the blood of the elect and the martyrs, the killed for Jesus. I was surprised to see him. Episode 7 The Mystery of the Babylonian Woman. The Book of Revelation or Statement has 22 chapters. According to IntimacyGod.com, the majority of scholars believe that the 7 years tribulation is detailed from chapter 6 to 19. Many Bible scholars believe in this theory. If you look at this chart, the chapter 1 is the present day of John on the island of Patmos in 95 AD. Chapter 2 and 3 are prophecies of what will happen to the church for about 2,000 years or so. This is the church age from 100 AD to the present time. We have already studied that in part 2. Chapter 4 states that the church is already in heaven, and the rapture is mentioned here. There is a rapture in the book of Revelation. That is the true view that the rapture will happen before the 7 years of tribulation, according to chapter 4. So more on this study on episode 13. Chapter 5 refers to who allowed the 7 years of tribulation, as we learned in part 4. Chapter 6 to 19 What will happen during the 7 years of tribulation until the second coming of Christ. Chapter 20 refers to literally 1,000 years of the reign of Christ and his church here on earth. And also in chapter 20 the end of Satan and final judgment on believers. In chapter 21 to 22 refers to the new heaven and new earth. It proves that there really is an end world. So I invite you to finish these 16 episodes. Because of all that we will find out how true the theory is I show you now. About the book of Revelation. Chapters 6 to 19 are just twists and turns during 7 years of tribulation. So not everything in the book of Revelation is in chronological order or by sequence. There is a parallel chapter here and parenthetical chapter. The question is, what are parallel chapters and parenthetical chapters? Another thing you should understand, dear ones, that the book of Revelation has parallel chapters and parenthetical chapters. When said parallel chapter both occur in same time when it is said parenthetic means an inserted event. According to WellingtonsPan.com, there are 7 parallel sections and parenthetical sections. Dr. Wilmington holds a well-known doctorate of eschatology and is a prominent Bible scholar. That with Wilmington from chapter 6 to 19 most of it is repeated, and the rest were inserted only as prophecy, meaning the chapters in the Revelation are not in chronological order, but there are parallel chapters that are repeated events or 1, 2 or 3 prophecies will happen at the same time. When it is said parenthetic means an inserted event. According to WellingtonsPan.com, there are 7 parallel sections and parenthetical sections. Dr. Wilmington holds a well-known doctorate of eschatology and is a prominent Bible scholar. That with Wilmington from chapter 6 to 19 most of it is repeated, and the rest were inserted only as prophecy, meaning the chapters in the Revelation are not in chronological order, but there are parallel chapters that are repeated events or 1, 2 or 3 prophecies will happen at the same time. There are parenthetic chapters or inserted events. According to them, the 7 seal chapter 6 describes the general events of the 7 years of tribulation. The first, second seal happened in birth pains, and the fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh seal, and also the same time frame as the 2 beasts in chapter 13. It is divided into the first 3.5 years and second 3.5 years. These are 2 periods of Antichrist, first 3.5 years and second 3.5 years. These are general events that will happen to the Antichrist and false prophet within 7 years. Chapter 6 of the 7 seals and chapter 13, already 2 monsters, are both parallel to each other. They happened within 7 years. And we have discussed this in episode 5 and episode 6. The parenthetical chapters that take place in 3.5 years are the 2 witnesses of chapter 11, the 144,000 Jews sealed in chapter 7, the mystery of the prostitute in chapter 17. These 3 parenthetical chapters will take place in the first 3.5 years. That's why they are called parenthetical chapters, because they are all inserted in the middle of the book of Revelation. But their time frame is that it will happen in the first 3.5 years of tribulation. The 7 trumpets in chapter 8 begin with middle of the first 3.5 years. The parenthetical chapters in the first 3.5 years are the 7 bowls of God in the chapter 16. The woman and the dragon in chapter 12. The city of Babylon in chapter 18. This theory I completely agree, because it is close in the harmonized event in the LPPB of Revelation. It's more consistent than anything I've studied. Besides, there are many Bible scholars this is the view. I believe Wilmington's theory, and we can explain it in the remaining 9 episodes. All of that will be investigated, we will study. Now we have studied the Babylonian woman. Revelation chapter 17 is a parenthetical chapter. When it is said that this is a parenthetical chapter, an event that was just inserted. As I said earlier, this will happen in the first 3.5 years of 7 years of tribulation. And we will know in our study why she started with birth pains in the first 3.5 years. Like writing a letter, if you have something to say that is happening or want to say. Don't we put an open parenthesis, then that statement, and then that close parenthesis? Besides, we continue what we write. That's the correct logic of the parenthetical statement. That's why chapter 17 is a parenthetical chapter. Now as we read the verses, we will write the information about this prophecy, until we come up with an outline so that we can group each piece of information according to the arrangement of the sequentially. Now let's start with verse 1, Revelation chapter 17 verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels with the 7 bowls came to me, and he said, "Come, I will show you how to punish the queen of filth who sits on many rivers." In that verse, number 1, she is a woman, second, she is the queen of lewdness, third, she is sitting on many rivers. With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. She fornicated with the kings of the earth, she was drunk with the wine of her lewdness. In verse 3, then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. In that verse he is riding the beast. In Revelation chapter 17 verse 4, the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and was glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. In that verse he is wearing purple and red. He was wearing expensive gold jewelry. He was holding a golden cup. In verse 5, the name written on her forehead was a mystery. Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. In that verse her title is the famous Babylon, the mother of adulterers. In verse 6, I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God, holy people, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. In that verse he is drunk on the blood of the martyrs. In verse 9 this calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. In that verse the woman is sitting on 7 hills. In verse 16, the beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute, they will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. The beast and 10 horns will end in queen of lewdness. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. In that verse the woman is a famous city that is followed of the kings of the earth. Out of the 14 on that list are cleas that we will discuss. Let's break it down. To make the woman's story clear, I arranged an outline according to my teaching. I didn't delete anything from the list, I just wanted the order and clarity of our study today. It is divided into 3 questions. What is this woman's identity? What did he do according to world history and is doing in our time? What is the prophecy about him? Let's tackle the first question first. What is the identity of this woman? At number 1, she is a woman. First of all, this woman is only symbolic and not literal. When the Bible in the Old Testament and New Testament mentions the symbol of a woman, this is a group of people who believe in our God. In other words, when a woman is a symbol, it is a religion or a group of believers in God. For example, in the Old Testament, Israel, they are true believers in God. God sees them as a beloved woman. The Bible is clear here. It says in Hosea chapter 2 verse 19 to 20, you will be my wife forever, Israel. We will be united in righteousness and justice, purely love and caring for each other. You will be my faithful wife, and you will know that I am Yahweh. Isn't this verse exciting? It turns out that God sees believers as, or specifically in Israel, as a wife. The erotic word that is pure love is mentioned there. We will be united, and the word is my faithful wife. Meaning that's how God looks at the nation of Israel, like a wife who is being seduced. It was like that thrill moments, right? Why does God look at the believer that way? No wonder it says in Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 that God created us according to his image and according to his likeness. God became like us, or God is the same as us, because God is loving and we also know how to love. If God is loving, he knows how to love just like us. That's where he became our friend. That's where he became our kind. So the symbol is a woman. God looks at believers. God sees you as a beloved woman. The Jewish believers under the law, the woman believer in the Old Testament. Now, if in the Old Testament Israel and God, the Father, are compared to married couples, who is the couple symbol in the New Testament? It says in Ephesians chapter 5:22, wives, submit to your own husband as you submit to the Lord. 23, because the man is the head of his wife, just as Christ is the head of the church, which is his body, and he is its Savior. 24, how covered of Christ the church. Likewise, women should be completely subject to their own husbands. Men, love your wife as Christ loves the church. He offered his life for the church. In that verse, Paul compares the believer to a married couple. Although the contexts of these verses are advice to the couple wife, but the Apostle Paul drew here that Christ is the man and his church is likened to a wife. That's why you are believers. Christ is called in the Bible the bride of Christ. Also said in Revelation chapter 19 verse 7, let us rejoice and be happy. Let us glorify him, because the wedding has come of the Lamb and the bride made herself ready. In that verse it shows that the Bible really compares us to a bride or bride. So that's where the metaphor of the bride of Christ came from. That's where it was taken. Now if God looks at the believers in Israel and God also looks at believers as women, the question is, what kind of believer is the woman mentioned here? If this girl symbolizes a female believer, naturally she is also a believer in Christ. This religion is a Christian religion. Remember, the time of John is the time of Christianity, no longer in the Old Testament. So again, this religion is Christian religion. This girl is Christian religion. Now let's look at another clue. Number 2, he is sitting on many rivers. What does it mean that he sits on many rivers? Actually, the angel also explained what the river meant. In verse 15, Revelation chapter 17 verse 15, the angel also said to me, "You saw the waters sitting of women are races, nations, and languages." So rivers are races, countries and languages. Means this woman is sitting in countries all over world. When the word sitting means seat of power. When you are elected as the president of the Philippines, you are already in the seat of power. There is power, you will rule the Philippines. In our analysis, beloved, this woman rules the nations, races, languages. The question is, what? Is it Christian religion that for a long time even kings or presidents are kneeling to him? Let's continue to investigate. Let's look at the following clues. Her title is, the famous Babylon, Queen of Lewdness. This clue is the most mysterious information in the study. It says in that verse that the name has a secret meaning written on his forehead. The famous Babylon is the mother of adulterers and all of linen on the ground. Now let's first take the code name mother of adulterers. So if you yell, it's like swearing. When a man is betrayed by his wife and has sex with someone else, this is probably the biggest sin of a woman against a husband. The wife commits adultery means he or she breaks the covenant of the marriage. Now, because the believer symbolizes a woman, what does adultery symbolize? In the eyes of God. Said in Hosea chapter 3-1, and 3 and 4, Yahweh said to me, "Go away again, and show your love to your wife though she commits adultery." Because Yahweh still loves Israel even though they worship other gods and always offer them bread with raisins. Because the people of Israel will live without a king and without a leader for a long time. They will also lose the offerings, Asherah, ephod, and images of idols. If you examine this verse, the adultery of a believer, which is Israel, symbolizes the worship of idols. It's like how a wife who commits adultery feels. And it was mentioned there that having sex with another man is actual worship idols, so that means worshipping idols is as bad as adultery. Another verse that worshipping idols is equivalent to adultery of a wife. This angered God against Israel. Said in Ezekiel chapter 23 verse 27, "So I will put a stop to the lewdness and prostitution you began in Egypt. You will not look at these things with longing or remember Egypt anymore." That word there, that immoral living, is connected to idols. You will cut off your immoral lifestyle and not be obsessed with idols. In that verse, it is obscene that you are obsessed with idols. So it is very painful in God's eyes that his beloved woman is worshipping idols. It is tantamount to adultery. If you read the 10 Commandments mentioned in the Bible, Exodus chapter 20 verses 4-5, "You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. 5. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me." It says that you should not make statues to worship, and jealousy is mentioned there of a lover. I said that Yahweh your God is a jealous God. So it connects again to the relationship between husband and wife. Jealousy. In other words, adultery and fornication is worshipping idols and images. And when you make statues or images, God is jealous. If our relationship with God is a marriage, then engaging in any kind of idolatry is adultery. Now let's decode the old Babylon. Why the Christian this church is involved with idols and is popularly called Babylon or Babylon the Great. What is Babylon's connection to idolatry? There is my book titled Babylon Mystery Religion, Ancient and Modern. It was written by Ralph Bultrow. It shows the pagan religions started all in Babylon. According to this book, in just chapter 1 it shows how the pagan religion started. During backup time back in the day of the Tower of Babel. First discussed in this book that the pagan religion began with the construction of the Tower of Babel. The source of what he says to book is from famous stories such as Flavius Josephus. Flavius Josephus is a recognized world historian who lived in 37 AD during the early church. According to Flavius Josephus that I read in this book, after the flood in Noah's time, people migrated to the land called the Shinar. This place is next to the Tigris River, is the Euphrates River. So this place is open to wild animals. So you can live in time for this, you must have the skill of killing wild animals. That could ruin your family. So it means to heal then hunting. There was a hunter named Nimrod, who was known as a hero for killing wild animals. He is regarded as a hero and popular at this time. Nimrod is also mentioned in the Bible. It is said in Genesis chapter 10 verse 9, he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. It is also said in 1 Chronicle 1:10, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be mighty upon the earth. In that verse it is shown of the Bible. Nimrod was the greatest hunter in the land of Shinar. In the second verse, Nimrod is shown as the first conqueror of the world. Means he was the first emperor in the world. So his symbol is an animal, which means he is a good hunter. According to that book Nimrod's ultimate fame, he is the first leader of mankind. According to history, he had a proposal that instead of fighting wild animals, why not just them? Build large walls to protect the citizens from wild animals. That was his exact idea. So later he built the most big tower. He led the construction of the Tower of Babel or Babylon. So he was the first leader of the world government of ancient Babylon. Said to Genesis chapter 10 verse 10, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. It is clear from that verse that he is the first ruler of Babel or Babylon. He was exalted in Babylon until his death. When Nimrod died, his body was dismembered, burned, sent elsewhere. His death greatly saddened the entire Babylonian kingdom. This is where his wife Semiramis entered the scene, that Nimrod was declared by him to be the sun god. After she gave birth to a son, she named him Tammuz and declared it to all Babylon, whose son Tammuz is the reincarnation of Nimrod. This is how all of Babylon believed Tammuz and Nimrod's reincarnation. Tammuz's mother probably heard the prophecy of the coming of the Messiah. That the Messiah will be born of a woman, because this fact has been known since time immemorial, once upon a time. Remember Genesis chapter 15. The Bible already predicted the coming of the Messiah and that a woman would give birth. He said his son is supernatural. He conceived, he was promised a savior seed. This happened 2,500 years before the birth of the true Messiah, our Lord Jesus. After the death of Semiramis and Tammuz generations came the people of Babylon, established the pagan religion, and their god and goddess are Nimrod, Semiramis and Tammuz. Here they began to make human and animal statues representing Nimrod. And the statue a woman with a brood of sons, Semiramis and Tammuz. According to Genesis, what happened at the Tower of Babel or Babylon was detailed. Good to read in Genesis chapter 11 verses 1 to 2. In the beginning there was one language and the same words used by all people in the world. In their transition to east, they came to a plain in Shinar and settled there. Remember that Shinar was Nimrod's abode as we mentioned earlier. Jump us in verse 4. They said, "Come and let's build a city with a tower reaching to the sky so that we will be famous and not be scattered in the world." Yahweh came down to look at the city and the tower that the people had built. He said, "Now they are all united and their language is one." This is just the beginning of what they plan to do. It won't be long before they do whatever they want. The good thing is, let's go down and disturb their language so they don't understand each other. And Yahweh caused the people to be scattered all over the world, so the building of the city stopped. They called that city Babel, because their Yahweh confused the language of the people. And from there, people scattered all over the world because of what Yahweh did. When people were scattered from the Tower of Babylon, different languages of people spread all over the world together. The languages of Chinese, German, English, Spanish, Arabic, Malay, Greek, Latin, Indian, Roman began there. To unite the people of the world according to their language. Different countries were born here. It's just that they still carry their religion from Babylon. That is their god, that of Nimrod, with human and sometimes animal statues, and their goddess Semiramis carrying the child Tammuz. It spread to the world generation by generation. First Nimrod, because the statue of Nimrod spread to other countries, Nimrod's name was also changed and according to the languages of the country. It's Nimrod called the sun god of Mitra in Persia, Sol in Rome, Ra or Horus in Egypt, and Paulo in Greece. Semiramis and Tammuz are the second mother and daughter, also had different names in different countries. If you can see, these statues are women with a baby in their arms. For example, Indrani of Malaysia, Devako and Krishna of Thailand, Ishi and Ishwara of India, Xingmu of China, Sibyl of Dioeus of Asia, Ashtoreth and Baal of Israel, Isis and Horus of Egypt, and Venus and Cupid of Rome, Rhea and Zeus of Greece. All of this has translated to each generation that its origin is in Babylon from Nimrod, Semiramis and Tammuz. Don't you notice the Israelites, how many times they fall into worshipping animal statues? Like during the time of Moses, when Moses was on the mountain to get the 10 Commandments, the Israelites were impatient for Moses to come down. So the Israelites did of the golden calf. You will wonder why they worship calves or animals. Because it comes from the idea that Nimrod is the famous hunter of wild animal. Their worship of Baal and Ashtoreth also represents originally Semiramis and Tammuz's mother with child. Now let's go back to the adulterous woman. Let's list again the clues of her character. First, she is a woman. It is Christian religion. Second, he sits on many rivers. Means this Christian religion is involved in the government. All languages, nations and kings on earth worship him. This woman rules nations, races and languages. Thirdly, he is an adulterer, which means that this Christian religion has practices of idolatry. Fourthly, he is famous Babylon. His code name means the origin of his adultery or idolatry is from Babylon. In ancient Babylon, that his statue looks like a man and sometimes a woman carrying a child. Who is this woman in the Bible? Do you have an idea in our time? Sadly, we see this in the Roman Catholic Church. So what I will say is just a disclaimer that historical theories are just a base in my analysis and piecing together the information I gathered in the books of the experts. It is still up to you to decide whether to believe it or not. No. I have no intention of attacking the people of the Catholic Church. Like the Pope, Bishop, priests, nuns and those who attend church here. No man, I just want to inform everyone that the teaching of this church is already in the book of Revelation. That the teaching of this church is mentioned that in the Bible. They are already in the prophecy. But I am not condemning that those in this church will perish. No, that's not it. I believe that you are a Catholic and you believe in the work of Christ, you may be saved. That or my biblical stand. Because the Bible is not a religion or an organization, only faith in the finished work of Christ can save us. Christ is the way, not religion or organization. So beloved, if your understanding is free and you thirst for the truth, you will continue watching this video. Second question, what did he do according to history? The Iglesias Romans is a perfect fit with those we mentioned before. That it is Christian religion, praised by kings, prime ministers, presidents and high governments in every tribe, language, country in our time. Involved in teaching worship in the statue with a child in a cradle, which is the statue of Virgin Mary cradled Jesus or Santo Nino. As we learned in part 2 after the death of Constantine in the 3rd century. When the 6th century entered, the teachings of the Roman Church increased. According to this book, that Babylon mystery religion, the Roman Empire and pagan empire. And the Roman people have long been fanatical about their pagan religion in the past year. When Constantine came, the Roman citizens were actually forced to join the Christian religion. Because Christianity is said to be nothing statues and no pagan customs. In the 6th century, the Roman bishops carefully studied the Christian religion, which teaching their paganism can be the same as Christianity. Statues that the Romans worshipped, such as Venus and Cupid, woman with child, who originally came from Babylon. This is none other than Semiramis and Tammuz. Since the state of the Roman Empire is already Christian, what can they change it to? Mother and child worship. Here, by generation, Venus and Cupid were replaced by the Virgin Mary and child Jesus as their statues. From to Semiramis and Tammuz of Babylon to Venus and Cupid of the Roman Empire and the Virgin Mary and young Jesus during the Roman Church. Combined, they already have paganism and Christianity, and we can see that in Catholicism. At first, the Catholic Church was not like that during the time of Constantine. But after Constantine, many teachings of the Roman Church were added that we have to admit are not really in the Bible. Like the making of the statue of Semiramis, Tammuz and Nimrod. Their pagan teachings, from Babylon, are not from the Bible. So this woman is called the famous Babylon, the mother of adulterers. Which actually means, religion from Babylon, mother of idolaters. That's really it, that's the real meaning. And this is based on what we are studying today. According to the book of the Babylon Mystery by Ralph Woodrow, it is called Modern Babylon. That's why the title of the book has the subtitle An Ancient Modern. Let's read the 4 clues. The woman is a famous city followed by kings of the earth. Now, what city is it in our time now or in the past almost 2,000 years that the city is followed by the kings of the earth? This can be seen. Let's go to the Vatican City. We know that in the past 1,500 years the Papa in Rome was powerful and brought kings, prime ministers or presidents to their knees. A good example here is the excommunication with the kings. For example, in 1535 King Henry VIII was excommunicated. Remember, it is King of England but excommunicated by the Vatican under Pope Paul III. It was only here in the Philippines during the Spanish era that the curas ruled here as conqueror. They can impose excommunication or excomulgado even on the leaders of our country. In the novely of our national hero Dr. José Rizal Noli Metingere and El Filibusterism. That's where you will see how powerful the friars and priests are in this era. So it was said that she sits over the kings of the earth. Fifth clue, he sits on 7 hills. Revelation chapter 17 verse 9. Understanding and wisdom are needed here. The 7 heads are the 7 hills on which the woman sits. Now it's almost 1,500 years ago. There is no city in the world that sits on the so-called 7 hills other than the Vatican City or respectively the city of Rome. According to Wikipedia, the 7 hills of Rome are Aventine Hill, Canlian Hill, Capitoline Hill, Esquiline Hill, Palatine Hill, Quirinal Hill, Viminal Hill. According to Wikipedia, this is actually significant hills or land in the city of Rome. So there really are 7 hills of Rome. The Catholic Encyclopedia says, it is within the city of Rome, called the City of 7 Hills, that the entire area of Vatican State proper is now confined. The Catholic Encyclopedia, page 529, Rome. This is written in the Catholic Encyclopedia itself by Thomas Nelson in 1976 under the heading Rome. So the Catholic himself said that Rome, or specifically that the land of the Vatican, rests on these 7 hills. So it is clear that Rome and Vatican City are the cities spoken of in the Revelation chapter 17. The woman sitting on the 7 hills. Number 6. She committed fornication with the kings of the earth. Let's first take the word like the kings of the earth. Kings in earth means government leaders, like presidents, kings, prime ministers. The word that he fornicated means out of boundaries is his activity. He only works in the church. He is also involved in the government. This feud started during the time of Constantine, when the state religion and state government are combined. So that's where the Vatican started to become powerful under this church. In short, there was power this church in government. And this is exactly what we have seen in the world history of the Roman Catholic Church. He has been powerful for a long time in all countries. Here in the Philippines during the time of the Spaniards, businessmen and alperes themselves could afford to be humiliated by the priests and friars of the time by Rizal. So the Bible correctly says that this woman or this religion has become powerful in various governments, languages or countries. Number 7. He is dressed in purple and red. It says in Revelation chapter 17 verse 4, the woman's dress was purple and red. Her jewels are gold, precious stones and pearls. Holding he has a golden cup full of his accursed deeds and shameful lewdness. One of the amazing things in the Bible is the color of the uniform. Cardinals and bishops are also mentioned in the Bible. If you look at this picture, it's no accident that their uniform is that color. If you Google it, you have the uniform of bishops and cardinals, when it turns out that those cardinals are red, and bishops are purple. So I was really impressed with the Bible, because even the small details that were shown to Apostle John 2,000 years ago show what this woman is wearing. Number 8. She is wearing jewelry and gold and very stone value. If you also look at the denials of the altars, John says the same thing. Gold and precious stones. In those pictures shown, altar decorations are also mentioned in the Bible. The symbol of her wearing gold jewelry and precious stones is also said in the prophecy. The other details are just the uniforms of the bishops and cardinals, as well as the interior design of its church. Equipment inside the church, precious stones and gold. Austell Wan had seen him before. Number 9. She is the queen of lewdness. So we already know the lewdness mentioned in number 6 is in government. He has power over every government of tribe, language and country. Number 11. He was drunk with the blood of the martyrs. Revelation chapter 17 verse 6. And I saw this woman is drunk on the blood of the elect and the martyrs, those who were killed for Jesus. I was amazed when I saw him. So it's shown here this woman or this religion is drunk with the blood of those chosen by the martyrs and those who were killed because of Jesus. So if those who have been killed, this is a martyr because of Jesus, meaning Christian believers are also being killed by this woman. That's prophecy, meaning this church is involved with those the crime of killing Christians. That is the meaning of that verse. The question is, did this really happen in history? That the Roman Catholics were involved to mass killings? Well, this is probably the saddest thing in history, that the Roman Church is called the Inquisition. So what is the Inquisition? According to Wikipedia, the Inquisition was a group of institutions within the Catholic Church to combat the heresy, conducting trials of suspected heretics. Meanings say that if you are a heretic or wrong faith, you will be considered a heretic. So Wikipedia admits that they themselves founded this Church of the Inquisition during the medieval period. This Inquisition was the darkest part of the Church during the medieval period. If you Google how many those who died in this Inquisition were 30,000 to 300,000. And there are historians who believe that millions died. Now the question is, who died here? If you Google the purpose of the Inquisition of the Roman Church, this is what it says. What was the purpose of the Roman Inquisition? The Roman Inquisition, an agency established in 1542, was designed chiefly to combat Protestantism, which was conceived and defined as heresy in Catholic territories. To combat the Protestantism means fight the Protestantism founded by Martin Luther in the 15th century. Protestantism is established by Martin Luther, who was a former priest who opened the mind against payment influence for salvation and good work to be saved. Martin Luther's mind was opened that salvation is a gift through faith in Christ alone and not good works. That teaching is the main teaching of Protestantism, which is accused by the Roman Church of heresy or false belief. And he was raised as a rebel priest, so it means that in the hands of the Catholic Church, this church is very drunk on the killing of Protestant Christians during the Inquisition period. According to Britannica.com, the massacre in France in 1572 is called the Massacre of Saint Bartholomew's Day. Lots of French Protestant among the priests who died was executed by Catherine de' Medici, who was supported by the Roman Catholic. That massacre that is said to be responsible is still money. Pope Pius ordered to kill men, women, young and old. Those are just some of the massacres in the Inquisition in the Middle Ages, and the victims here are Christians, Jews and Muslims. So the true prophecy is that this religion is involved in mass killing or genocide. The news here at Church Roman is CBN News. It was reported all over the world that the Saint Pope John Paul II apologized to the world regarding in the Vatican's sin during the 15th century Inquisition period. This publication is titled Vatican Looks at the Inquisition. That said, in 2000, John Paul apologized for the sins of Roman Catholics made in the name of their faith, including abuses during the Inquisition, a crackdown by church officials from the 13th to the 19th centuries, on individuals suspected of being in conflict with church teaching. This woman also apologized in 2004 amidst the Saint Pope whose institution was drunk on the blood of martyrs killed for Jesus. Pope John Paul II apologized when 2004. Now the third question, what is the prophecy about him? Number 12. He is an ally of the monster. Revelation chapter 17 verse 3, I saw there a woman riding a red monster. The beast had 7 heads and 10 horns. Written all over its body are names that insult the gods. So what does it mean that the woman is sitting on the beast? I want to remind you that sitting is very important here, because the position of seating means to control. So the meaning of the woman sitting on the beast means she controls the beast with 10 horns. If the woman represents the Church of Rome in the Vatican and the beast is the Antichrist who is 10 leaders, so it means according to the prophecy in the first 3.5 years and Vatican government led by Saint, he will co-control the Antichrist in this one world government. So possibly there is the Vatican blesses the rise of the one world government. That's why Pope John Paul II mentioned about the one world order. According to a website that asquotes.com, Pope John Paul II has a prediction, and this is what he says. At the end of this decade we will live under the first one world government that has ever existed in the Society of Nations. And government with absolute authority to decide the basic issues of human survival. One world government is inevitable. Quoted by Pope John Paul II. When it is said one world government is unavoidable means it is inevitable. So the Vatican has admitted that there will really be a one world government and it cannot be avoided. That's why they have the courage to say this, because it is already in the prophecy, which they will support the rise of this one world government. This is according to our analysis. And the prophecy. As I said in part 4 and part 5, the saint does not have to be the Antichrist. Dad, I repeat, he is not the Antichrist. Nor is he the second beast. But that this religion will lead the one world religion according to the revelation in chapter 17. In other words, the Vatican is really what the woman is referring to Babylon in the Bible. The last on our list is the 13th monster to end the queen of lewdness. Revelation chapter 17:16, the 10 horn you saw, and the beast will hate the queen of fornication. They will take all his possessions and leave him naked. They will eat her flesh and burn the rest. This is the painful truth that is already in that verse and also in the prophecy about what is the end of the woman. He is not in the hands of God, not in a human revolution, not in a disaster, but in the hands of the Antichrist himself. He is the Antichrist, will betray the 10 kings of the world. It says that the beast and 10 horns will hate the queen of fornication. Meaning the Antichrist, the one world government, will hate the Roman Church. And the Antichrist himself will destroy this church. I'm not the one who said that, but the Bible. That's what's clear there. The question is, why would the Antichrist and these 10 leaders destroy the Vatican City? Remember, after 3.5 years after the birth of the Antichrist, persecution of Christians, hope for all Christians, including Roman Catholic Church, will be destroyed. The Antichrist himself. Only Christian Jews will be destroyed. How he will conquer the nation of Israel and desecrate the temple, the same he will destroy the Vatican City. That said, he will seize all its property, means confiscated all the wealth of this church. And he also said there he will be left naked. To leave him naked is an idiomatic code of the ancient word that means the Antichrist will expose the secrets, and this church stinks all over the world. All its crimes, corruption and political connections will be exposed by the Antichrist. That's the meaning of leaving. He is naked or stripped means exposed or exposed the stench of this church. And it says that they will eat his flesh and burn the rest. It is another idiomatic code in ancient times, according to the Bible scholar, that means all the clergy will be killed, so that frees non-bishop and archbishop cardinals of the Antichrist. No wonder, because it was persecution during 3.5 years. Remember, in the middle of 7 years persecution, that immediately to all Christians will do to all Christians. It says in the verse that the rest will be burned. It is possible that the Vatican will be burned in a bomb. More on this topic in episode 8. We will discuss our number 14 in another video. Thank you very much for following our channel and videos. May the Lord of heaven and earth open your heart and mind. Stay tuned for the next one.